I learned 4 huge lessons in 2024 that had a big positive impact on my life, and I'm sharing them in this podcast in hopes that they can somehow contribute something positive to your life as well. So enjoy. I'm Patrick Will. In 2019, I started making TikTok videos. I scaled my TikTok account to 150,000 followers. I shortly thereafter started this podcast, which is a self-development podcast where I speak to influential people. Another way to say that could be influencers, or call them influencers, people with a certain amount of following, some of which have had millions of followers. And if this is something that you enjoy, if you like listening to self-development podcasts, then subscribing to this podcast will help out a lot. It is effortless. It's painless as well. It takes less than 5 seconds, but makes a huge difference for the podcast. So that would be great. Thank you so much. Besides doing this, I write animated comedy series, and in the likes of Family Guy, The Simpsons, that sort of shebang. And I'm saying this to sort of say that I am a person that has goals. I try to achieve things. I try to work towards some things. And if you're a person who has some type of goal in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form, could be starting a successful business, could be writing screenplays, could be becoming a great athlete. I hope that these, and think that these lessons that I learned this year could have a positive impact on you as well. So enjoy. Lesson number 1, the first thing that I learned this year was periodic learning. And I don't know what the official phrase or term for this is. I just named it periodic learning. I don't necessarily even know if it makes sense, the name, but that's what I called it. Simply what periodic learning is, it's a method of learning things, because I realized that to learn is also a skill. And I knew that I had to learn how to learn. And it sounds sort of silly, but I realized that I would read a book, I would listen to a podcast, I would watch a YouTube video, and the things that were put in my head, the information that I was gathering, did not stick. I would quickly forget what I had learned, what I was taught in the podcast, in the YouTube video, or in the book. And I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand why I couldn't remember these things. And so I'm sort of appalled and embarrassed in a way that it took me 26 years to understand periodic learning. Simply, periodic learning is taking a period of time where you learn about a very specific thing, a thing that is relevant to the period of your life that you're in right now. So to put it into a few examples, let's say you start a business, you just start a brick and mortar store, you have customers come in, you're brand new. What's more relevant to you right now, there's a lot of relevant things, of course, but let's just take an example, a specific example. What is more relevant for you right now to learn is how to greet customers physically, because you have a brick and mortar store. It is more relevant to learn that, again, we're just taking a specific example, than learning how to run Facebook ads. Now, running Facebook ads is relevant for almost any business, even if you have a physical location, but it's not relevant for you right now since you're brand new. Now, a lot of people might be excited about running Facebook ads in the future, and they want to learn about it right now. The thing is, yes, you need to learn about it eventually, so why not learn about it right now? Because you're going to have to spend time on this regardless at some point. But say running Meta ads or Facebook ads, whatever, is a year away for you. Now, what I sort of figured out for myself is, if I learn something without putting it into practice, if I read a book about something and I don't put it into practice, meaning I don't do the work, it will not stick. So the way that I like to think about it is, you need theoretical practice or theoretical learning, and practical learning as well. So if you read a book about something, you have to put what you read and what you learn into practice. Meaning, say you want to learn about Facebook ads, if you read a book or take a course on running Facebook ads, you better make sure that you also run Facebook ads. And it sounds so simple, but it really didn't click for me until this year. And I'll give a different example. So again, I write animated comedy series, I write screenplay scripts. There are a million different skills within writing a screenplay. Typically before you write a script, almost everyone does this. People who don't do this are crazy. I don't understand how you can do this, okay? But most people will write an outline before writing the first draft. So when I am outlining, I will not read a book, watch a YouTube video about writing a first draft. I will only try to spend all my time dedicated to learning something, specifically to writing the outline. And for those of you who don't know, just to give a quick context, an outline is basically where you write out what's going to happen in the script. Like, this is the scene, the person feels this way about the other person in this scene. You just write out everything that's going to happen before you write the first draft and put it into screenplay format. And yes, I am going to have to learn how to write a first draft, but I'm just not there yet. And so it's very easy for people, including myself, to jump ahead too soon. And the thing is, if you try to learn about something too soon, you will forget it once you actually have to put it into practice. And then you've just wasted your time because you have to relearn it. When you put it into practice, I think that you have to put the theoretical learning and practical learning as close to each other as humanly possible. Probably the best way to learn something would be to read one page of a book. Let's say if you get your information from a book, read one page of a book, then put that into practice, go back, read another page, put it into practice. Of course, that's not very practical to jump back and forth because there's also, the activity switching, which takes up a lot of time, etc. But that's a completely different topic. But in theory, that would be the most beneficial way to learn something, is constantly you learn something and very quickly you put it into practice. So think about it in terms of theoretical learning, reading a book, watching a YouTube video, taking a course, listening to a podcast, puts the information in your head. The practical learning makes it stick in your head. And so I think Alex Hormozi said this, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, I'm sure many people have said this before him, but we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And this is especially true if you try to learn something without putting it into practice, because you forget things and you have to relearn them. And I'll give you an example of myself. Last year in 2023, I told myself I'm going to read a book once a month. So I'm going to read 12 books. I'm going to read a book a month. And this was simply just I felt like I wanted to be smarter. I'm a dumbass and I want to be smart. So I'm going to read more books. And looking back at it, I'm just so confused. Like, why? What's the purpose? I was reading tons of different books. I was reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life. I was reading $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. I was reading, I think it's called 12 and a Half by Gary Vee, about leadership and empathy and all that good Gary Vee stuff. And the thing is, I barely remember anything of most of the books that I read in 2023. Literally, I barely remember anything because I didn't use what I was reading. I didn't use the information in those books. I just read them for the sake of reading. It's basically toxic productivity. I was just trying to be productive. I was trying to do something productive just to be productive, even though it was not really productive because I didn't get anything out of it. And so this is a long way to say that I really believe in periodic learning. I think if you try to be as extreme as possible with this, to get all the distractions out of the way, you might be very excited about running Facebook ads at one point, and you think it sounds so fun. You can't wait to make the content for the ads, but it's not. You're not going to do that. It's a year out for you. You have other things in your business. You're brand new that you have to focus on first and build up. You might be so excited about it, but try to wait. Try to not think about it. It's also, it lessens stress so much, not having so many things in your head. You just laser focus on the thing right in front of you right now. So more than anything, it's really a method to get rid of all distractions and clear your head, laser focus on the task at hand, and try to learn about this thing, put it into practice as much as possible, because you'll get good at that thing very fast. If you have nothing else to think about, you only have this one thing that you focus on. You'll get good at that thing so much faster than if you're doing a million things. Now, I know, of course, if you're a business owner, you have a million things that you have to do, right? All the time. I mean, if you're a new entrepreneur, you're doing everything yourself in the beginning, most likely. So I understand that it's not always applicable to some degree, but if you can, try to be as specific about the way you learn as possible. Cool. The second thing, this number two, the second lesson that I learned this year was to schedule my day. And so back in the day, I'm so old. Back when I first started to try to do something, try to work towards goals, I started by setting a goal for the year, which was fine. I did that. The year after that, I set goals for the year. I set goals for the months. The year after that, I set goals for the year. I set goals for the months, plural. And I set goals for the week. The year after that, I set goals for the years, goals for the months, goals for the week, and goals for the day. In other words, a to-do list for the day. Now, that's fine. I mean, having a to-do list is better than not having anything planned for the day, of course. I think the to-do list is quite flawed. It tells you what to do, but it doesn't tell you when to do it. And there's a few issues with that. First of all, it is hard to determine how long a certain task is going to take. So let's say you have 5 things on your to-do list. It is hard to determine beforehand how long each of those items on your to-do list is going to take to complete. I would more often than not find that I completed my to-do list much faster than I expected. I feel like people often complain about the opposite. People often say things take a lot longer than you expect them to. Sometimes I think you just overestimate work and underestimate how productive you can be in a full day, especially if you don't take breaks. But that's a completely different talk, I suppose. And I would find that I would complete my to-do list and then sort of, I wouldn't know what to do then. I had nothing else planned for the day. It was, am I just going to goof off the rest of the day? Or am I going to spend time now trying to figure out what to do then? Because it takes time to plan new stuff to do. What I found, which I started doing this year, which has been a huge game changer for my life, and I mean this in the most literal sense. If you can take anything away from this video, this podcast, I think scheduling your day is so... Well, first of all, I barely have any stress anymore, and I'll get to that. But it's so productive. If you look at my calendar, I have every single second of the day scheduled and planned out. Every single second, with very rare exceptions. I know that 5 a.m. I get up, and I know at 8:30 p.m. I go to bed. Everything in between is scheduled. So I know from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. I do this thing. From 12 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. I have lunch. From 5 p.m. I go to the gym, etc., etc., etc. Everything is planned out. And the issue with the to-do list is you don't know when you're going to do it. And so it's quite stressful because sometimes you sit down, you get things done. Other times you sort of procrastinate because you can tell that I don't have that much scheduled for the day. I could goof off for a couple hours. Not to say that that's necessarily what I did, but I did do it off, or I did do it sometimes. Um, with the schedule, you know what you're doing all the time. And I think this has, I used to be so stressed about so many things because I think people misunderstand stress for, they think stress comes from having too many things to do. I think stress comes from not doing the things that you should do. So basically, having things just floating around in your head or on a to do list that you have to do eventually or that you're not doing. When you have everything scheduled out, you know that you're going to get everything done. You know that, oh, I mean, it could be the most random thing. I mean, my last pair of boxers broke. They have so many holes in them. I need new boxer briefs. I know at 8 p.m. on Thursday, I'm going to browse the internet for new boxer briefs. Completely random example, but you know what I'm saying. I know I need to write this script. I know that every single day from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., whatever, I'm going to write on this script. And so I know I'm going to get things done. It's in my calendar. I live vicariously through my calendar constantly. I follow it so religiously. And I have never felt less stressed. I really, truly mean that. And people look at this way of living like they think it's stressful. And I understand when you look at my calendar and everything is filled up every day, weekends included, all the time, everything is mapped out. It looks like a lot of things to do, and it is. But the thing is, I don't think stress comes from having a lot of things to do. I think it comes from not doing them. And I know I'm going to do everything. I know I'm going to get everything done because it's in my calendar at very specific times. So I'm not going to worry about, oh man, I got to get my script done. I don't know when. I never have time for it. I do have time for it because it's there in my calendar. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but if I could really, if you could take something away from this, try it out. I mean, you don't have to be as extreme as I do. Maybe you just have it, Monday to Friday. If you want to take weekends off, I'm not a fan of that, but do whatever you want. If you want to just do Monday through Friday, try it. I think it is such an insane hack for productivity. Quit the to-do list, start scheduling your day. That's the moral of the story. Cool. Number 3. The third thing that I learned this year was wasted work is better than no work. Doing something is better than nothing. And this sort of comes from the idea that people are so afraid to start something because they think they're not good enough to start yet, which is so ridiculous because you're not going to be good at it when you start. You're never going to be ready for it. You're never going to. The first thing that you do is never going to be perfect. It's going to suck. And so this is sort of like a bonus lesson, I suppose, that I learned this year which was give yourself permission to suck. It's okay to suck. I used to be so sad and feel sort of depressed because I'm not particularly talented at anything. I'm not particularly smart either. And so I would suck, and I suck at everything, every new thing that I do all the time. And it's really heart-crushing because it's not nice to suck, right? It sucks to suck. But the thing is, you're going to suck. And people have a hard time starting something because they're afraid they're going to suck. And the thing is, they feel like it's wasted effort. They feel like it's wasted work because it's not going to be good. And I so strongly disagree because the thing is, you have to do the sucky work before you can get to the good work. It sort of ties into, I had to teach myself not to censor myself when I write because you sort of have to have an open mind because when you do creative work, or I suppose any work at all, you will get 100 bad ideas for every one good idea. That means you're going to suck 100 times for every one time you don't suck. So you can't censor yourself. You can't say, I can't do this because I'm not good enough yet. You have to be willing to suck all the time. And so you're going to have to do, this is a weird way to quantify it, I suppose, but you have to do 100 bad work this is not proper grammar, but I think you get the idea. You have to do 100 bad work to do one good work, right? So there is no such thing as wasted work. There's work that is better done than other, but you have to do the work that sucks in order to get the work that's good, especially in a creative occupation or in sports even. If you want to be an athlete, you're going to have to miss 100 shots before you can get the one good shot, and then you get better from there, right? You have to be willing, you have to give yourself permission to suck. And I have the pleasure to talk to a lot of screenwriters, you know, a wide range of screenwriters, people who are brand new, people who are professional and make money off of screenwriting. And the difference between the professional screenwriters and the amateur screenwriters that are brand new is the professional screenwriters write regardless if they suck or not. You know, it sort of ties into the writer's block. It like you can't wait to get inspiration to write. You just have to write and you just have to suck because that is eventually going to lead to that diamond. Like I used to play a lot of Minecraft, and so maybe this analogy will hit for some of you. Like you are not going to find diamonds every time you mine stone. You're going to have to mine through so much stone until you find the diamond. You're going to have to do so much work that sucks to get to that one piece of golden diamondy work, let's say. And that's why I really want people to understand that, you know, going back to this screenwriter example, people who are amateur screenwriters, they wait for the perfect moment to write. They wait till they have inspiration, or they wait till they think that their idea is good enough to start working on. I spoke to a screenwriter who said he had meditated on an idea for 2 months. The thing is, if you started writing that screenplay the same day that you started meditating, you would have written that screenplay less than 2 months. You would have done something, and you would know if that idea is good or not. And you would have learned a lot of things along the way. Now you've wasted 2 months of meditating instead of putting in the work, and you still don't know if the idea is good or not because you haven't written the screenplay. You only know if the idea is good or not when you've written the screenplay. And so you could have spent those 2 months instead of meditating, writing the screenplay. Not only will you now know for sure if the idea works or not, but you'll also have learned so much because you've done work, and it takes work to learn how to do good work. Again, I'm beating a dead horse, but this is procrastination. You have to be okay with sucking. You have to realize that you are going to suck. So there's no such thing as wasted effort. Wasted effort is better than no effort. You just have to do it. That was sort of like 2 lessons that I learned this year. Because I was the same way. Listen, I'm not trying to pretend that I know anything necessarily, or that I'm good at anything, I suppose. This is more a reminder to myself too. Again, going back to we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. I need to remind myself of this all the time because I fall back on these distractions and this procrastination all the time. So I hate to sound like I'm preaching and that I'm a saint or something. I fuck up all the time, and these lessons have been hard to learn because I've messed up for years until this sort of clicked for me. Let me look at my notes. I forgot my last. Oh yeah. So the 4th or 5th, I suppose. I guess we had a bonus lesson in here. The 4th, 5th, whatever. 4th thing that I learned this year was to base my goals on activities base my goals on activities rather than outcomes. When I did TikTok, I would set a goal for the year, which would be something like, I want 50,000 followers by the end of the year. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just so vague. What does that mean? It's not very specific. Like, what are you going to do in order to get the 50,000 followers? That's what I want to know. What activities, what inputs are you going to put in to get the outcome? So I like to now base my yearly goals on activities. So instead of saying I want 50,000 followers on TikTok, I would much rather be specific about what I am in control of and say, I am going to post one video every year, 365 videos this year on TikTok. And that is because my hypothesis is if I do that, then I'll get 50,000 followers. And that's also really great because it sort of teaches you how to get 50,000 followers rather than just doing something vaguely and not very deliberately in order to get your goals. So you can, this is goal setting, and I learned this from Alex Hormozy, which I thought was brilliant. You have a hypothesis, and you say, if I do this, if I put in this work, then the outcome will be this. And so if I make videos every day for a year, then I will get 50,000 followers. That's my goal for the year. And then you can look at that and say, did I get 50,000 followers? Very objectively. Yes, cool. Then making videos every day seems to work. If not, okay, well, maybe next year it didn't work to post every day. Maybe next year I'll post every other day and put more quality into the video than focusing on quantity, right? So you have something to measure. You have data. Instead of just going randomly about it and saying, I want 50,000 followers, I'm just going to make videos not very deliberately. And I think that has helped a lot in also learning much faster. And I don't think there's anything wrong with setting goals based on outcomes. I just think it doesn't make sense to put a time frame on it necessarily. Because it's out of your control, really. You can control what you put in. You can control your input. You can control what activities you're going to do. You can't necessarily always control what other people are going to do, which getting followers, again, just using this as an example, getting followers on TikTok is sort of out of your control. It's other people deciding that they like your video. Now you can affect how people think. You can do some sneaky CTAs to get people to follow you on TikTok. Subscribe to this podcast, please. But you can't really control if they're ultimately going to do it or not. You can try to influence them to do it, but you can't control it at the end of the day. Does that make sense? So base your goals on activities that you can control rather than basing them on things that you can't control. And I think that's it. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. These 4 or 5, whatever, lessons, really has more than anything helped me accelerate my learning curve. God, I have burps, sorry. In a tremendous way. And I really hope that you can take something away from this. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions about this. Some of these things might be super obvious to you. Some of these things you might never have thought about before. I really hope they can help you. That's sort of why I do this. As a reminder to myself and as a sort of like a diary almost, a public open diary that hopefully can have an impact on you. I'm repeating myself. Thank you so much for watching again. If you do enjoy this sort of content, I have 50 other podcast episodes. The far majority are with other guests. This is a solo episode. The far majority are with people with, some of them have millions of followers, and we talk about self-development, how they got to where they are now, what sort of struggles they went through, and what helped them out. Sort of like what I'm doing now, just with more interesting people than I am. So if that sounds interesting, subscribe to the podcast or follow if you're listening on Spotify, whatever. Like this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.